Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and today I am joined by my guy, Randy Gumalek. How you doing, Randy?
What's up, Patrick? Off season is in full swing.
Yeah. I mean, let's just take a second to just breathe a massive sigh of relief that this season is over. I don't know about you, but I did not obviously want the Warriors to lose, but there is a part of me that's like, okay, my level of stress every other night is kind of decreased. How about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I watch all the games, so it's super easy to get really into it and really almost emotional about it. Of course you hate to see him lose, but yeah, like you said, it's kind of a sigh of relief. I just watched Lakers Nuggets yesterday, so I was like, well, I don't know if you could see the Warriors taking Denver. So, if it had to end in the second round, that's how it's going to be this year. So I feel a little bit of positivity. Obviously you hate to lose that early, but I think that maybe it's kind of the wake up call they need, either to reshape the roster or to reshape how many vets they have. So I think it, was probably what had to happen.
I did not watch the Lakers Denver game, and that was liberating, not to have to be tied to the TV to watch a very, very stressful game. So I do miss the Warriors playing already, but I don't miss that head scratching vibe that they had all year long. Before I forget, I just want to make a quick announcement. This show, Oakland Warriors podcast, has joined the Fans First Podcast Network, Sports Network, FFSN. We actually joined like a month ago after leaving TBPN, the Basketball Podcast Network, which actually shut down at the end of March, but joined up in April, but just haven't had a chance to mention it or talk about it because I've been too in the weeds on these Warriors games. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity. It seems like there's some great shows and great other hosts out there. So looking forward to doing more and tinkering with this show, the formats, all that stuff now and into the future. Because for me, it's also the off season where I get to play with topic ideas, show ideas, and whatever pops up in my head. But that being said, Randy, are you ready to have a quick reflection on the season we just witnessed? You and I did a preseason Western Conference prediction episode, and you weren't too bad. I was probably worse. But, you got the Nuggets at number one, so I'll give you that. Let's see. I don't have mine written down because yours are in the show notes. You had the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Wolves, the Lakers. That's not too bad. It was a weird season for everybody when you kind of take a step back and look at it. All these teams had so many problems. Everybody was stuck in the middle of the pack. It was so mediocre.
Well, I know that I had Denver first, so that's kind of validating for me. I know the Clippers were super high. Dallas was high. I mean, I didn't think the Lakers would make it, but I mean, you also take into account like midseason trades. Kyrie and traded away all their depth. The Suns made a huge move. Like it's hard to think about like, oh, at the beginning of the year, like they didn't have KD or KD was still on the Nets, and there's just all these different kind of dynamics. But as a whole, I mean, thought it went all right. I feel pretty good. I think I could have a better prediction next year.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that predicted what happened like from top to bottom in the league. Everybody assumed that the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George would be better, and then the Warriors that they I mean, I don't know how many episodes I did about the Warriors youth movement early in the season where I was like, Well, at least they serve their purpose. But I think I'll give you the Nuggets one. That's a solid pick. And I got to admit, the day the Warriors lost, I became a Nuggets fan. We'll see how that works out. But I actually want to go through and give grades. Grades to the whole Warriors kind of organization, starting with the players, because it's rough, man, and there's going to be a lot of change and upheaval. But are you game for this?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right. So we're going in alphabetical order. So Patrick Baldwin Jr., what grade do you give him?
I mean, I guess I could give him like a B minus. It's like he barely got on the floor, but when he was on the floor, you could see the shooting stroke, you could see what he could do, in the future. But when they took him and they took Ryan Rollins, it was like, how many more rookies do you need? like how much can they really realistically contribute this year? How much time are they going to spend in the G League? So I can't say I watched, every single second of his tape or anything. I know he had gotten sent down a few times just to get some run. But yeah, I mean, given the circumstances, given kind of the weird vibe around the team after that whole trip to Japan and then the Draymond Poole thing, I don't know how much he really could have done. So B minus is probably where I'm at. I think he could grow into something better next year and, hopefully give him more.
Yeah. I'm high on the kid. I think B minus is fair, though, just based on what we were able to see from him. Not entirely his fault per se, but, circumstances, and he definitely was an afterthought this season. Steph,
you have to give, an A plus. I know he had some freak injuries, right? He got hurt against the Pacers. I think he got hurt against the Mavs too a couple times. Like he missed some stretches of games, and so he wasn't entirely healthy. But once it was the playoffs, it was kind of like, where would we be without this guy, right? Like the rest of the roster was kind of, the whole year it was like, who has a second option? Like which guy is it on any given night? But you always knew that the first guy would be Steph. So I think that out of all the guys, he probably takes, I guess, the least blame. It's a team game. They lose together, they win together. But just on a kind of individual performance basis, I think he had a great season.
Have you ever been frustrated, or were you ever frustrated with Steph for anything this season? Like, because he's such a golden boy and everything, and all those things you said are true. But sometimes, you can look at people, not you in particular, but like people look at their heroes as infallible. But just off the top of my head.
Yeah. Honestly, not too much. I know that everyone on Twitter, at least, is clamoring for him to be like the LeBron type, where he's like telling Bob Myers, get this guy or trade these guys, trade these kids. And I just don't really think he's ever had that vibe. If he did have that, maybe it comes out this summer, right? Maybe he wants to have more of an active voice in reshaping the roster. But I think that, the issues for the Warriors were more on kind of like a team trust dynamic basis, not like, oh, like your stars are not performing or anything. So yeah, I wouldn't too much on Steph. What about you?
Yeah. I give him an A. The only time, all the things that you said, for sure true. I guess the only times I've been frustrated with him is the perception that he maybe enabled Draymond a little bit too much, and enabled some of that stuff from, punching Poole. And then the idea that, and this is a general thing with the vets who voted that Draymond shouldn't be suspended so he could be there for ring night and whatnot. And, that just set like that piled on to a weird tone that had already started after the video came out. But overall, like Steph, his playoff performance did what he could. I don't blame him for running out of gas and having tired legs and missing a bunch of threes in that game 6 against the Lakers. So, all right. Hey, great. Right. Donte,
I would give probably like just a solid B. Like I thought that he has a player option, right? So of course, there's always that view towards next year. But in his first year as a Warrior, I thought he was able to contribute in a lot of different ways. I didn't realize that he could cut as well as he did. I thought that in the playoffs, it was kind of a hit or miss thing where sometimes he'd contribute, or other times he'd just be like, 0 for 4, get 9 minutes. And, so I don't think he was ever counted on to be a top 4 or a core guy, but as a bench piece, I think looking to next year, it's weird to see him and Gary Payton right back in the same roster. So I don't know if they make a decision there. I don't know if they move him almost to like a facilitating role. I mean, I thought that he was pretty reliable in that sense, but yeah, I would say that, apart from the playoffs and the kind of like rotation jumble mess, right? Like I thought he had a good first year. So I think a B is what I'm.
Okay. Yeah. I actually thought B, I could give him a B plus, but he definitely dropped because of the playoffs. I talked during the season that he was like the perfect warrior. And then I think Gary Payton coming back kind of threw him off a tad. Right. And so, his playoff performance, I mean, it's kind of stunning how far he dropped off. Again, we've talked about this before, and we all know that player option is something that most likely he turns down, because that's a player option you get when you're coming off of an injury, so that in case you get hurt again, you pick it up and you're covered for another year. But I think he made his money. I don't think he lost money at all in the playoffs. So love Donte DiVincenzo, but I think he's probably gone, especially as you said with Gary Payton on the roster. So okay, moving on. Draymond Green.
Gosh. On the court, I could give him a B plus. I thought he stayed relatively healthy, right? He's still an amazing defender, still kind of the hub of the offense. It's really just him, and I mean, they run a bunch of stuff during the regular season, but we've all seen in the playoffs, it's just Draymond and Steph, and then he gets the 4-on-3. Like that's just the bread and butter. So on the court, I thought he was pretty much what they needed him to be. I know that everyone wants him to score at least 10 points a game. Everyone wants him to, be more aggressive, take some more layups, but I don't know how much growth or kind of change you expected in his game this year. So on the court, a B plus. Off the court, maybe a B minus. Like I know that Poole incident definitely like just threw off the vibe, for who knows how long. It could. I don't even know what you would do with that nowadays. Like I think they're definitely at a crossroads, because even in the playoffs, right? You saw how angry he was able to make the Kings, right? He's messing with them, and he's getting in texts, getting into all these little spats, and that's what you expect from him, right? And then you get to the Lakers series, and he's like not really going at their top guys in the same way that he would have. And, maybe that's because he's signed a clutch, or maybe because it's LeBron, or because, whatever. But I think that at least on, social media and just kind of the vibe I'm getting is that people sort of have a right to be upset with him at how he conducts himself. I mean, there was that whole thing during the season where he was like trying to miss the game that the Warriors were going to play to go see LeBron break the scoring record. Like, he actually asked Steve Kerr if he would, allow him to do that, and Kerr kind of shot it down. But I don't know. It's like, it's just a game. I know that they're all friends. It's like, it's a business. But, from a competitive standpoint, I think Warriors fans would love to have seen him have a little more animosity, in that Lakers series. It sort of felt like, I mean, even right after game 6, he's over hugging LeBron, hugging all the coaches on the Lakers. And, you see Steph clearly, more upset. So I don't know. Yeah. Off the court, there were some frustrations. Obviously the Poole thing could be a whole conversation in itself, but I guess that averages out to a B. Was that the last time? The last time like
So you gave him a B minus off court, and then what on court?
Probably like a B plus on court. I thought he wasn't a bad basketball player, maybe a bad teammate. But,
yeah. I give him a B on court and an F off court. Like I think he's the only person we're gonna do on court, off court, right? Because like we love Draymond Green, we know what he's meant to this team. There have been frustrations over the years because it's just like you kind of shrug your shoulders and be like, "What, dude? Like, why?" And I think you alluded to something that I think Bill Simmons talked about it, about how Draymond didn't do any of the Draymond stuff to LeBron or AD in that series. And yeah, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. Like a lasting juxtaposition in my mind is this image of Draymond starting the season, punching Poole, and then the ending image of him like hugging the hell out of LeBron after losing. You know what I mean? It was like really, really like tight. It was very meaningful. It's like they hadn't seen each other in years or whatever. So again, just made me shrug my shoulders and be like, what? And I've talked about this, but just to reiterate the idea that yes, we know that the regular season is just the regular season. We know, as Warriors fans, have been trained to really focus on the playoffs and understand that you have to pace during the regular season. But just the basic eye test said that this not taking the season seriously and mouthing off and saying, I don't get up for games in March, or, these games don't mean anything right now. That clearly wasn't the case, because these habits, you're building these habits, and then you are who you are and you do this. And I've been saying that all season. And, there was this the clip of him talking to Stephen A. Smith, and Smith asked him about the Poole punch and asked him if the Warriors would still be playing if he didn't do that. And he said yes, which I agree with. But I mean, you tell me what your thoughts were on what Draymond said.
I mean, like the PG version is like, no duh, right? Like, I mean, you'd hope that a team that had just won a title and basically kept all their guys would have been even stronger, right? Typically teams that win a title come back better the next year if they keep the core together and they, everything kind of runs its course. But then, with that incident going on, it just kind of threw a wrench in it. Like, it's sort of like a meaningless hypothetical now. It's like, oh, well, if Draymond doesn't punch Poole, or if Steph doesn't tweak his shoulder in a weird way against the pace, like, it's at that point, I don't know how much that means. But yeah, I think that, fans are a little frustrated with him. Like, yeah.
And to me, it was a weird way for him to frame it.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you haven't seen it, just look it up on Twitter. It's all over the place. He basically talks about how he had to take a step back, and by taking a step back, the Warriors developed these habits, which I've talked about all year. And he actually used the phrase that I use all the time, which is like, you are who you are, you become who you are. And he spoke of it as if it happened to him.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, by February, I felt like myself. I was like, well, how's Jordan Poole feel? I mean, I'm super critical of Poole, but I'm also of the mindset that I wish he would speak up, but he can't, because for one, Draymond is the loudest guy in the room, and he's not going to win a war of words in the media, right, let alone in the locker room with him. And if he does win a war of words in the locker room, Draymond's just going to punch him in the face again. So I have mixed feelings about how he talked about that, because it's really just framing this narrative as if, like, oh yeah, the Poole punch, that happened, but what really affected the team was that I willingly took a step back. Dude, people didn't like you. People were mad at you. Like the young kids were probably like scared of you at that point. So I find that really, really frustrating, and I guess that kind of also goes to this whole enabling thing, where it's like, oh, like, I want him to get his ring. We'll get through it. We've been through worse, but I don't know if they have been, and clearly they couldn't get through this. And this whole idea that, I mean, we've heard in Steve Kerr's presser and then Draymond talking about it, that it's what we as fans were saying all season long, that like, oh, this is probably kind of affecting the team and their mojo, especially with so many young kids. And everybody would be like, no, it just happens all the time. And, that's just how, competitive athletics are, and gaslighting this whole idea that it was a big deal and saying it's not. So I don't know. I still have like kind of, I had issues with his team during the regular season and the playoffs. I was able to kind of turn that spigot off, because I was just focused on the Warriors trying to win and like what they can do and enjoying the ride. But now it's all kind of coming back, and it kind of bugs me. So like, yeah, I give him an F for the off court stuff, because he really, really just tanked the top of the season. And, they've gotten through injuries before, but not necessarily this thing. So, but, he was good on the court when he actually felt like competing. So,
Right. Did you see that clip where he's talking about how Looney had hit AD with the forearm, right? And how Draymond had this soundbite where he was like, one small hit to your head could change your life. And people are like, oh gosh. Draymond would know.
So, oh man, yeah. Like I don't know. I'm seeing like little hints and wrinkles of obviously his biases and who his friends are.
Yeah.
And then when he retires and if he becomes like this talking head media guy, like I can see his corniness coming out because it's so just obvious how he's slanted. He'll be like lighting up like, Bronny James is the next MVP in 2 years, once the kid gets to the league or something like that. Let's just keep going. I got more on that stuff, but let's get through some of these other guys quicker. JaMychal Green.
Okay. JaMychal Green, C+. I don't think he was a viable replacement for a guy like Otto Porter or even Bielitsa, right? Like, who could have stretched the floor and even honestly, matched up defensively with a few different guys better than expected. I think that what also kind of threw a wrench in JaMychal Green's season was the Wiseman kind of debacle situation where he was like, we have a veteran backup center, but we have this, high lotto pick that we also want to play center. And so during the beginning of the season, it was like, which one of them is going to get minutes. But by the end of the year, like I just don't know if he quite put it together, night in, night out, the way that maybe he wanted to or the organization saw him doing. I think that the shooting stroke was kind of hit or miss. There were times where he was really hitting it. He'd hit 3 or 4 in a game, and then there were times where it's like can't even play him. Like he'd just pass up those shots, or he's just like not quite in the scheme. So I'd put him at like a C+. Again, he's not expected to be a core guy or someone contributing, X amount of points or helping you win X games. But could you have found someone better? Probably. But, it is. I think C+ is probably where I'd put him.
Yeah, I give him a C-, and I will be the first to admit I was so wrong about that signing. I thought he would be good enough, and I thought that, kind of in tandem with the young guys being better. Yeah. But JaMychal Green just was not it. You know what I mean? I thought he'd just be like a slightly like leaning big man version, whereas Otto Porter Jr. can play, small ball center, but usually plays power forward down. Right. I thought JaMychal Green would play power forward up, and his shooting stroke was supposed to be consistent, right? He had a regularly consistent career as of late, except for like one down year, I believe. Right. But yeah, he just was not. I mean, I'd groan when he would get on the court. And so funny dude, if you ever look at his Instagram stories, like he just shares stuff from like other stuff that he thinks is funny, and it always cracks me up. So highly recommend that. But outside of that, I give the dude C-, and I don't expect him to be back next season. Andre.
Gosh, Andre. I mean, it's almost one of those like Patrick Baldwin situations where it was like, yeah, of course, you're a vet. In a different sense, like you're a vet. You're obviously here to mentor some guys off the court and almost be like this kind of assistant coach during games on the bench. And yeah, it's like, I know that he had said, I'll run it back one more year. Like, is this how he's going to go out? Is he going to retire now? Like, I don't know how to grade his presence, just because so much of what he was bringing to the team was probably, not available to the public, right? We're not going to go watch their practices. We're not going to go, see their, huddles or their meetings in the locker room. Like, and that's probably where, his expertise and his knowledge was most useful, right? Like he's not going to go out and play 15 minutes a night even. So I think that it's like a B, it's like B-. Like you'd think that he helped, but you also think about like the guys that he would sort of be mentoring, right? Kuminga, maybe Wiggins, like hopefully Poole a little bit. You never know. Like, and yeah, I don't know how much you could do with his I don't know. It's kind of a wash for me. It's like, great, he was there, but I don't know how much of it was made. Like,
yeah. Like I'm refraining. Like I'm not going to give incompletes to people. So I mean, I think a B- is fair. Just, I mean, you can't fault the guy for being old. And I was expecting him to come back. I wanted to see him get a 5th ring as well. So I was all for that. You know, we knew he wouldn't play much, but it was disappointing that he would play literally like 3 games, then go out.
Yeah.
And that he couldn't get back on the court was a shame. But once he broke his wrist, I was like, he's not coming back, because I didn't think the Warriors would last that long, to be honest, although they almost did. But I'll give him a B- because a lot of it was out of his control. But, you know, I'm sure he was a positive overall to have on the and it's not his fault. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think in the middle of the season he's going to be like, I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
And so you guys can sign some other guy to stick at the end of the bench. So, you know, love Andre. Thank you for all that you've done. All right. Ty Jerome, you had 10 seconds for him.
Ty Jerome, honestly, like a B+. Like, I know that he was never going to be, you know, a guy, and he has Poole who's supposed to be kind of the backup point guard and 6th man, but he seemed dependable. You know, like if he came back on some type of minimum deal, or I mean, whatever, you know, whatever he's worth. But yeah, good vibes. You know, didn't quite get to know him for too long, but you know, I have a solid opinion of him. I think he was a good basketball player.
Yeah, he impressed me. I'll give him a B+. But for sure, just imagining him in the playoffs, he would have been annihilated on defense. So I'll leave it at that. Kuminga.
Kuminga, you probably give like a C. I mean, I think if you know, out of anyone, he's probably the most disappointed in how this season kind of went for him, and how, like, in the first few games he wasn't even getting minutes. There was a stretch of games where he got maybe 20 minutes a night and was starting to maybe find something, but you know, by the end of the regular season, like, he still hadn't quite established himself, right? Like, they were playing Lamb, they were playing really just a bunch of different lineups. They were putting Gary out there by the end, where he's basically a big man, big, small, you know, 6'3" big man. Like, I think that it's probably the most, like, this is probably the most important offseason so far in his career. It's not like he had just finished his 2nd year, but I think that this, if he could improve and he really brings something, like, I want him to contribute next year, but I think this year was probably not how we wanted it to go, like, development wise.
I mean, I give the kid an A-.
Yeah,
you know? Like, I thought he had a great year. I've spoken about my frustrations about him not playing in the postseason. I understand, because I remember his last legit playing time, he messed up 2 possessions in a row, like on offense, on defense, and Kerr just pulled him. But you know, it's a whole nother issue of accountability and who gets a longer leash than others. And you know, the idea that he played so well before Payton got on the court, before Wiggins got on the court, and then all of a sudden he gets shafted. So you know, a whole nother conversation about his role and where he goes moving forward, and what the various interests are in amongst the team and what he does. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that for sure. I got like a whole episode of stuff to talk about Kuminga. Lamb.
I guess he was what you needed him to be for the time being. You know, it's like you saw him play during the regular season, and Kerr is like, oh, we need these experienced guys. It's like, where's his experience from? Like, I mean, how many other teams has he played on? Like, it's not like he is an 8-year vet. I don't know. People were upset about, you know, he had all these allegations. He had all this off-court. I mean, people were just upset that he was on the team in the first place. So even, you know, once he got on the court, any contribution he made was like, I guess it's like, again, like, he's not going to be a core guy. Like, I'm not sure what exactly he brought, at least consistently. Like, could you have gotten someone better in that Ty Jerome, Anthony Lamb, Ryan Rolland, like, you know, those 3 or 4 kind of end of bench guys? Like, could you have turned that into something? Maybe not. But I don't really include him as sort of a central part of the team, of the narrative this year. Like, they screwed themselves without him. I don't know how much he helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should thank Draymond for his own being on the team for Lamb, because like Draymond knocking the team off kilter and then the season going so weirdly, it forced Kerr to play quote unquote vets, right? Guys who had experience and whatnot. And I mean, I think Lamb's performance on the court, I give him like a C minus.
Yeah.
I don't personally want him on the team for all those other reasons.
Right.
So I'll give that an F.
Yeah.
And just the idea that, still like he took time away from Kuminga, from Moody, who all of a sudden learned how to play basketball again in the playoffs.
Right.
And Kerr said recently that he was the first one to the offensive rebounds. I'm like, really? Okay, really? Like, is that all it was?
Yeah.
Are you telling me all season long, Moses Moody refused to rebound or refused to get in there? We know that Kuminga has some rebounding questions and stuff, but I find that those pressers are just all PR anyway, and it's all spin. So I find that kind of questionable in general. I think all of it was also panic moves by Kerr and the organization. And I think a lot of it was, we hear this all the time that the vets have input on who plays because it's all about earning those minutes. You're not just going to throw somebody out there who's young because they're a prospect. So, that's there's a lot of blame in that respect. So that's all I'll ever say about Anthony Lamb from here on forward, I guess.
I don't expect him on the roster at the start of next season.
No, man, because I joked around that basketball gods, after Draymond punching Poole and then after having Anthony Lamb on the team the whole season into the playoffs, they're not going to let this team advance to the finals. There's just too much weird vibes and too much weird karma around that stuff. But I don't expect Lamb around next year. Kevon Looney.
I love Looney. I think Looney gets an A. Like, he played every game. It's so, I mean, I'm almost like proud of him as just a fan. Like, he played every game. He's grabbing all these boards. He's matching up with all these guys and he's like showing consistently how underpaid he is, right? Like with who he's matching up against and just how vital he is to creating second chance points or just grabbing rebounds, and on a team that really didn't have another center, right? Like, or at least another center that really knew the system. I mean, JaMychal Green had just gotten here. Wiseman was in his second rookie year. I don't know. They might have been a lotto team without Looney. I don't know, man. He gets an A. I thought that, in the playoffs, he was pulling down 20 rebounds a night. I don't know how much more he could do. His hips are washed. He's not going to be scoring a ton. But love Looney.
Yeah, I'd give the dude an A+ just because, again, played every game, super healthy, does the lunch pail stuff, and he rose up to the occasion in the playoffs. Yeah, against the Lakers, they exploited things that he can't do, but his ability to rebound and play defense got them through the Kings series almost as much as Steph did, right? So I give him an A+, and it's crazy because just a couple years ago, after Wiseman got drafted, Looney's singing Wiseman's praises and talking about how Wiseman is the future, and Looney already accepting, kind of taking that step back. And he's a guy who, whenever he's been a free agent, no other team has really wanted him. I love what he's been able to do. So I joke about him getting his statue, but he may not get a statue, but at a certain point, dude might get his number retired. I think. I don't know.
I think that'd be great. I don't know any Warriors fan who would not want to see that. It's of course, he's not the lights out 3-point shooter. He's not going to be the flashy kind of dynasty plays, but it's everything else, right? All the rebounds, all the ugly plays, build him a statue by the start of next season.
All right. Payton,
I think you give a B-, B-. Again, it was crazy that how he had even come back to the team in the first place, right? How he, in the offseason, they didn't want to match the contract that Portland had given him, so he left. And then by the end of the year, they had just gotten him back on that same contract, right? That they signed him to. Yeah, I know that I don't know if he was necessarily as good as he was last year, but a lot of the kind of just on-ball defense, ball hawking, like, you needed it. I don't know how much it could have done. There were some other glaring holes on the team, right? That it's not like he's going to come in and just solve everything. But yeah, I mean, I'd expect him to be probably the 7th guy in the rotation next year, like 7th, 8th, definitely, the first kind of on-ball defender guy. Like if they have like I don't know, like a Terrace Ross, just like bench microwave scorer type, like, yeah, you put Payton on him. So I think that, the fact that you have him for 2 more years is pretty good, because after, in 2 years, I don't know where the team is, right? Like, Draymond has a player option. You don't even know who's going to be back next year. So, I mean, I'm glad to have him on the team. So,
yeah, I'll give Payton a B-. I mean, it's not his fault he got hurt. And I give him props for coming back. He probably could have sat out longer, or should have maybe. But he had moments in the playoffs where it was clear how vital he was. It's a shame, though, that Kuminga had to suffer losing some minutes because Payton was there, even when Payton was sick in the playoffs or when he wasn't effective. But he'll be better next year, hopefully. Hopefully he's more healed up, and hopefully he's just not like getting older. Okay, Jordan Poole.
Gosh, Poole is so weird because honestly, like during the regular season, like he and Klay were kind of carrying them for stretches at a time. I mean, Steph is out, Wiggins is out. I mean, so many people miss time, and I know that after the punch, it was kind of this weird, like, well, what's the rest of the year going to play out like type of thing. And I thought that in the regular season, at least, like he had risen to the occasion. Like I know he's not. And by the playoffs, it was very much a different story. But I thought that, I think he had career highs in like 2 different categories. Like it wasn't like a complete wash of a year. He had a bad postseason run, but like, I don't necessarily know if moving him this offseason is like the way to go. I know people are like, oh, like trade him for OG, trade him for, Markelle Fultz. Like, I don't know. I think he's worth keeping around, another season or 2 at least. Like he's only 22, 23. Like he's clearly got room to improve. And I think that he, has what it takes, right? Like it doesn't, again, the playoffs is a different story. And, he was just, I think everyone by the playoffs, it was just like the vibe had shifted. Like Klay is missing super easy shots. Poole is, it's like not doing it. So yeah, disappointing postseason run, but for the year, I'd give him a B+. Like I thought he was there are rooms to grow, but he clearly means something to the team.
You are a far more generous man than I.
I mean, it was frustrating in the playoffs, but like at the same time, it's like, he wasn't the only guy dragging him down. Like Klay had a pretty bad postseason run. Wiggins was kind of hit or miss. Like he had some good games, and I mean, he had missed 40 games at the end of the season. So getting him back at all was like, oh crap! Like
I'm waffling between a B- C+ for Poole because since the season's ended, I've been a little bit more generous because he got smacked in the face and became like a laughingstock throughout the basketball watching world. And to me, the playoffs for him were god awful, but and he was woefully inconsistent during the regular season, doing, dribbling off his face, whatever, juking himself out of his own moves,
right.
And taking terrible threes and costing him this. But I will also give him credit for being yo-yoed basically between the bench and a starting spot and being stuck behind Klay Thompson, who, if Klay didn't get hurt, I mean, I wonder how his attitude about his game and how his ego would be right now.
Right.
But if I'm Jordan Poole, it's like there was a lot he had to do. He had to carry a lot, and Steph was out for a while, and Klay was sitting on second nights of back-to-backs for a long time. So it was a very, very unique, difficult position he was in. That being said, I got to knock him for his erratic play, for his trash defense, honestly.
Yeah.
And that also, I've talked about this before, like that also goes to, at least my opinion, like the coaching staff and the vets enabling him and allowing him to play defense. They may not have had a choice to, who they're going to roll out there when Steph is injured, but like if you're not going to force him to play defense, he's not going to play defense in the playoffs, and you're going to sit him, right? Yeah. That's just going to happen. He doesn't know how to play defense properly, and so I'll give him, if I'm feeling like when I hear Draymond talk, I will give Poole a B-. But before that, when I'm just remembering some Poole plays that stick out to me,
there were a few end of game moments where there were that maybe at least like 3 or 4, maybe 5, where it was just like, inexcusable mistakes.
He and Klay, they carried them for a lot as their 2 main scorers with Steph out and Wiggins out, but they were also the 2 dudes who started the season really, really poorly.
Yeah.
Again, Poole, who knows? Maybe the kid looked shook for a long time. I thought he would snap out of it, but apparently he didn't. And then we'll get to Klay, but Poole was maybe the whole season long, he was probably, I think, the most aggravating on-court player, because he'd have so many highs and so many lows, and he had the ball so much,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna skip over Quinones and Ryan Rollins, to be honest. Whatever. Okay, Klay Thompson's next in the alphabet.
Cool. Klay, regular season, you give him like an A-. He led the league in threes. Started playing back-to-backs. He's not going to be quite what he was on the defensive end. I think that he, this year in particular, got really into kind of just heat checking himself out of the games. Kind of, some nights where he just hit his first shot and then he'd take 5 more, and now he's like 2 for 8 or whatever, 1 for and it just kind of takes the whole team out of rhythm. But at this, in the playoffs, obviously went not the way he wanted them to, and it's like at this point in his career, like, what exactly is he trying to accomplish, right? Like, is he trying to return to this all-star form, which seems less and less likely every day? Is he eventually going to be almost this Manu type who goes to the bench? Like, I don't even know. His contract is still huge, right? They announced like right before the game 1 of, I think, the Lakers series, right, where he was looking for a max extension. And yeah, it's like, again, it was a great, I think, regular season for him. First full one after coming back from those injuries, but by the playoffs, I think he'd run out of gas. He was shooting so much and carrying a lot in the regular season that by, April, March, like, it just wasn't quite where he needed him to be. The legs are shot, like the easy shots weren't falling. Because I don't know how badly he actually played. It's just like the shots he got were the shots that he's always making, like in any other play. But in the playoffs, he was just missing all of them.
Right. I'll give Klay a B+. All the great things that he did this year, really impressive, right? Just he's not going to be who he was on the defensive end, or even just get into the basket as much as he was right before his injury, that 2018-19 season when he was expanding his game. But I think when he started hitting like a ton of threes and really getting his numbers up, it was impressive. It was really impressive. I'm knocking him for the slow start, which I understand, right? He has the mental block about not playing during the summer because that's when he hurt his Achilles. But also he was such a shot hunter early on. And again, not that I'm maybe because the young dudes, the lotto picks, all these guys are so young, maybe I'm kind of protective over these young kids, but they deserve some blame. But also it's like Klay wasn't ready to go, and he is their second most important player in terms of scoring, or at least he was supposed to be. And John with Devin Booker waving those corny 4 fingers at everybody, right? It's like, okay, prove it, show it.
Mhm.
That was troublesome, contributed to the start for sure of this season going south. And then, just it was probably some legs into the playoffs, but man, you just can't have some of those shot hunting possessions he had against the Lakers were rough, especially that one that went viral because you saw Steve Kerr like throwing his hands up and Draymond going like, why? Like also throwing his hands up, right?
Yeah.
Like they were down by like 1 or something or 2, and
Right.
they went for an early shot clock 3, which was horrendous.
Yeah, it was bad.
And they lost that game 4. So I'll knock him for that. And then, game 6, like it's just, he can make those shots, but he didn't. Some of it is fatigue, some of it is legs. But at a certain point, it's like, it's too bad. But I'll give him a B+. I think he needs to figure out he and the team and whomever is going to be there, they need to figure out where he fits,
Right.
where he fits, what his future is. But that's a conversation for later in terms of contract and role. I've talked about if he didn't get hurt, would he be more ready to slip into that Manu off the bench role? Clearly he's not, because he's still trying to recapture his early 30s, those lost years. So I'm wondering where his head's at once all the recency bias and all the emotion kind of settles. Okay, last one, Andrew Wiggins.
Wiggins, I feel like is sort of the barometer guy for the Warriors. Like if Wiggins is playing well, I don't want to say it's hard for them to lose because they found some impressive ways to lose this season. But just I know he missed a lot of time. His dad got sick. Like there was this whole weird thing around his absence, like all these stupid rumors or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, I think that when he was on the court, like it showed us like what the team is supposed to look like. And it sucked that for so much of the year, it was like, oh, this is everyone but Wiggins, or it's everyone but Steph, or everyone but, whoever else.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, if they were fully healthy, yeah, maybe the playoffs look different. Maybe he gets way more rhythm in, like he's locked in more so. I mean, he basically came back like for the playoff. He just started game 1 against Sacramento and was like, yeah, he's back. So
mm-hmm.
Again, I think that, the circumstances, the stuff that he couldn't control, derailed his season. But I thought I don't think he regressed in any, horrible way or anything. I thought he played pretty well. He's still, I don't think he's someone you look at moving as much as you might look at moving a Poole or Kuminga or, I still see kind of Wiggins and Looney as, those sort of 25 to 30 guys look like the bridge. If
sure.
Steph, Klay, and Draymond are, like in their mid 30s now, and then you really only have Wiggins and Looney, right? Like there's not a lot of like mid-level, I don't know what you call them, like 8-year vets. I mean, Steph and Klay are in like year 10, 12, whatever now. But, the experience was definitely valuable. I just wish that he'd played more, honestly. So my grade for him is like B minus people. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm doing with most of these guys. That now I'm kind of realizing, but
yeah. I mean, I'll give Wiggins a B. To me, like he was the other guy besides Steph, the other vet who came into the season as if he just was shot right out of the finals. Mm-hmm. And then he got hurt. He was out longer than he'd ever been. It took him a while to kind of get back to where he was. And then, he just wasn't available because of his family issues. And then when he came in playoffs, like his shot was a little bit off, but his competitiveness and his aggression for the most part was solid. And then I appreciate the game 6, go out there and play, didn't play well, took a couple shots to the chest from LeBron in the post early on. And, I'd give him a B plus because I like him. But then that being said, all right, how do you grade Kerr?
I was gonna ask that. Like, I don't know how much you expect from his style, at least. Like, I don't know who his, influences are as a leader or anything, but, like, you come in, you have this Draymond Poole incident. Like, I'm not sure whose kind of decision it was. I know that they had talked to the vets about whether they suspend Draymond or not, or just kind of how that is facilitated. Um, yeah, I don't know if you could say it was a disappointing year for him as a coach. I mean, I think he's basically one of the longest tenured guys now, right? It's him, Popovich, Spoelstra, like everyone else
Yeah,
has
he's
got
third.
fired, right? Yeah,
He's
like
third. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it would be weird to me, it'd be weird for them to move off of him right now. I mean, unless one of Draymond or Klay is gone, like I think he's still kind of the guy you need coaching. But people were upset in the playoffs that he was kind of sticking to that motion offense that kind of got stale, and everyone has seen these actions thousands of times where it's like handoff, entry pass, handoff, blah 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 blah, like just like cuts and like nothing really substantial happening. And that was probably one of the more frustrating parts of the postseason, right? Because as soon as they would just run pick and roll with Steph and whoever, either a big or some type of mismatch, it pretty much worked. Like I know that Twitter was really, really into this. They were like getting all these
Yeah, they were.
pick and roll numbers, pick and roll frequencies, how many things, how many blah 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 blahs did you run? Like, yeah, I mean, I think I could grade him at like a B minus. I think that if he'd come down a little harder on Draymond in the beginning of the year, like maybe they could have healed some stuff. Maybe it could have gotten better faster, like or not. I mean, maybe they just kind of dooms. But yeah, it's hard to manage all these young guys who expect playing time and were high lotto picks and like want to go out there and do the thing versus all these vets who have done the thing, but now there's almost like a weird like are these young guys trying to take our minutes? Are the vets taking away from the young guys' development? I'm not sure you find a better coach to handle that situation, but yeah, I don't know if I put too much blame on him. I mean, it's just like it was a bad season. By the end of it, it's like I feel like everyone around the team could just kind of relay that kind of message, right? Like vibes were just off. It just wasn't quite right. Whether it was roster, whether it was the dynamic. So for Kerr, I'd probably give like just a B minus, B. Like I can't necessarily like remember like, oh, like that was a genius. He subbed in this defender. He's ran this play. I know that he loves his out of timeout plays and all that, but yeah, I don't know. I can't say I'm putting too much of that on him.
Yeah.
What about you?
I give him a C. Yeah. I think he should be loyal to the vets. I think he should be loyal to Draymond. But again, maybe I'm just using the same words over and over again, but the accountability and the enabling. And it's not just Draymond punching Poole. It's putting everything on the young guys. And I'm not trying to say that the young guys are all good enough to play and compete, but it felt like the panic move of, let's play Lamb, let's play Ty Jerome, let's play JaMychal Green over Wiseman after Wiseman got healthy. Let's let Poole do what he wants, and like Klay, let's let Klay be Klay, all this stuff. And some of that to me, maybe the season was just done from the very beginning, right? Maybe it was unsalvageable because there were such weird vibes, and then things just kept going wrong, right? Like Steph going out, Wiggins going out, Wiggins being gone, Steph going out again. I like Kerr, and it's not a question of getting rid of Kerr. I think he should stay. Absolutely. I'm not one of those people who says get rid of him because the question of like who else is out there. I mean, yeah, there's more people out there now because a bunch of people got fired, but that's not the point to me. It's just kind of judging it based on how he has been before. And I'm a big Kerr fan. Like when people called him out a few years ago for saying chasing wins in the play-in season, I thought that was BS. Like I just was like, man, people are on Twitter just making this a big deal. But I found some flaws in the way he approached some of his decisions, and I think those had repercussions throughout the season and then into the playoffs when guys could not tighten it up and play playoff basketball properly. We'll see. And then sometimes I get annoyed with his spin on things in these pressers and whatnot. But, I'm just a fan that he knows more basketball than I do, but it is what it is. What about, I'll do combo Myers and Lacob.
I feel like maybe this, how much they can control is, you can debate that, but maybe they bit off like more than they could chew. I think last year, you win the chip, you have all these young guys on the roster. If you look at the rotation in the finals, like that was all Otto, Gary Payton, Bielitsa. Like it wasn't a lot of Kuminga. It wasn't a lot of, Wiseman was not playing, right? Like I don't know how much. And then maybe, they figured like, oh, we can go into this year. We'll have these young guys just getting better. Like it'll all work out. But yeah, I think it probably took them a little longer than some fans would have liked, right? To realize that maybe Wiseman wasn't the best fit, or to realize that, I don't know if they would count the free agent acquisitions as like adequate, right? Like I think the bench was pretty clearly worse than last year's. They couldn't win road games this year, right? Like if that group stays together, I expect them to be more aggressive before the start of next season. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Myers went and joined the Clippers, or he joined, just went kind of his separate way and started a new chapter. Because I don't know if you saw, but they had been sending Mike Dunleavy Jr. to like all these different draft events and these different just kind of GM mixers, basically. Like just maybe he's the natural successor, maybe not. Like I think that if Myers is not here, I expect like more moves than maybe we've ever seen. Like you could see a couple trades. So we'll see. This year, I'd probably give him like a B-, C+. It clearly wasn't entirely their fault, but there were some glaring roster holes that they could have done more to address. Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough because like I think, and I'm a big fan of homegrown talent, of the lotto picks and everything, and the 2 timeline thing. People say, oh, it's never worked, but name me a situation where you have 3, maybe 4 Hall of Famers, even though if the 4th one would be Andre, doesn't play, and then 3 high lottery picks. I don't think I've ever seen that. The closest I've ever seen anything close is like, I mean, you look at the 86 Celtics getting Len Bias, RIP, and that's the closest thing, right? And he obviously didn't play. So people saying it's never happened. And I've said before, and I still stick with this, it's like I wanted to see Wiseman. I wanted to see if he was any good. I wanted to see how he'd perform. And so why would Lacob give up on him right away? And I think in terms of Myers, like, B- in that respect, but he did similar stuff that he did the year before, right? Like getting vets and guys on the relatively cheap, which is all you can do with the top heavy salary. And you hit and you miss sometimes, right? You hit on Otto Porter Jr., didn't get hurt last year. He got hurt this year for the Raptors. Gary Payton II, hey, let's be honest. Beginning of last year's preseason, Steph and Draymond wanted Avery Bradley too, right? Like it's like, come on. So he hit on that more than anyone ever thought that would be. And then Bielitsa, everybody was decrying Bielitsa throughout the regular season. So they performed in the playoffs, and it just didn't happen this year. You got DiVincenzo, who performed during the regular season, who was also out at the beginning of the season, so that hurt their bench even more. And then DiVincenzo couldn't do it in the postseason. JaMychal Green, we already talked about him. Maybe, and you alluded to this earlier, and I've talked about this too. It's like when you have 3 lotto guys, maybe you don't pick Baldwin, maybe you don't pick Rollins. Maybe that's the arrogance there, where you just totally backload on young prospects. Because if you have 3 guys who are lotto picks, hey, keep Andre, right? But use Rollins, use Baldwin slots on vets, quote unquote, just in case the other guys ain't ready. And so I think that's that in hindsight, not that I knew this because I liked some of these moves early on, but maybe to me that is the flaw that beyond like, the punch Draymond, that roster wise, that's the one that maybe did them in. And I know it's kind of weird to kind of lump Myers and Lacob together because everybody's saying like, oh, there's Myers wanted this probably, and Lacob wanted this, that, and the other. But and I did see that stuff about Dunleavy, and I'm hoping that's just because Myers isn't signed yet, so they're just like, hey, we're not there yet. Myers is a very measured speaker, thoughtful guy. He's like, hey, we're not there yet. So just in case, it'd be good for the franchise if we put Mike out there, just in case. So that's all I'm hoping for. I hope Myers comes back for this. Cool, man. Wow, I didn't think it would take that long to go through the whole roster. Oh, one more. I forgot the everybody's favorite. What is your grade for James Wiseman this past season?
Dude, I mean, you just wanted to see more. I mean, like I was able to, once he got traded to Detroit, I was visiting my brother in Chicago, and we actually caught a Bulls Pistons game. So I was able to see it. I was like, yo, yeah. Big Jim. Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't quite on that timeline, right? Like I think that in order for him to become the player who's as good as he could be, like he'd have to make more mistakes, and he'd have to stay on the floor after making those mistakes to try it again, and to just workshopping different parts of his game. And I don't know what they were thinking when they drafted him. I don't know if they thought he was more ready, or if they thought they could develop him faster. I know that they'd hired like their big man coach, right? Who was like, oh, Jokic's old trainer. So
right. That was for his second year. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think that it's like a C. Like, again, he wasn't gonna. I don't know how many people saw him like getting big minutes by the end of the year. I know that people wanted that. It made sense to at least try, right? Like there were some weird moments in the beginning of the season where like he just wouldn't get on the floor. It was like, what exactly is preventing this? Like, even if the game is already lost, it's like you might as well throw him out there for 7-8 minutes. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, I think that it was probably just frustrating overall. So, I mean, I'd hope he's a good player. I think that Detroit is a cool place for him. I think that, if he learns to play with Cade and learns to play with Jalen Duren, I mean, who knows, right? But yeah, it was probably better for him to get that fresh start,
Yeah.
So I'm happy for him. I wish he could have been a good player on the Warriors, but he's not dead. He's fine. He's gonna have a long career.
I'm pretty sure he's good to go.
At
least he has more money than me. I don't know about you, but he's good. He's good. But yeah, I mean, I give him a B-. I've talked ad nauseum about that dude, and again, I thought he unfairly became a scapegoat. He has his inherent flaws as a guy who I've said doesn't have enough dog in him. We'll see if that changes, but I wish he didn't hurt his ankle. And I wish Kerr played him when he was healthy enough again and didn't lean towards JaMychal Green, who all of a sudden saw the writing on the wall and started hitting his shots before the trade deadline, before he could get cut. And I also think that the vets kind of at a certain point were like, they didn't want him on the team, maybe because they just knew he wouldn't help them win, but also because they saw the writing on the wall. Like, the more salary that somebody takes up, the less likely you can pay Draymond, and Steph wants Draymond, and he finally kind of flexed like LeBron does in that respect around the trade deadline. So, but yeah, I'll be rooting for the kid from afar. Whew. All right. Any final thoughts?
I think that it's probably the most interesting offseason since probably the one where Klay got hurt. I mean, they did some weird stuff there. They got Kelly Oubre. You remember the Kelly Oubre year? Yeah. So, it's going to be an eventful next few months. But I just hope that by the start of next year, like, the hierarchy is a little more solid, or just everyone has a better sense of who they need to be. Like, again, this year just kind of felt weird from the first week. Like, they started losing all their road games. Like, it was just pretty whack. So, I mean, I thought it was really cool to see them gut it out against Sacramento. Like, I think that showed that they're not entirely done. You know, they can put it together, and they can, with the right pieces, with the right help, probably win, you know, hopefully 1 or 2 more. You never know, man. I think that there's still a chance if they keep Draymond and everyone stays.
Cool, Matt. Well, thank you once again, Randy, for coming onto the show. Y'all can find Randy. Just look at the screen if you're on YouTube, but if you're not, Random, RANDUMPROD on Twitter. Definitely, you should follow him. He's pretty funny on Twitter, especially about the Warriors. And he's like, I'm always tweeting like, I don't know. I always feel like I'm tweeting like serious stuff, and I'm like, oh, I got jokes. I'm pretty funny. No, but yeah, definitely follow Randy, man. Cool. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.